Hello once again, watchers of good TV. My name is Nick Pell, and this is once again coming from my white room. Now today I'm going to be talking about the Blacklist Season 1 finale. Along with that, I will talk about Season 1 as a whole. So, if you have not seen Season 1 of the Blacklist in its entirety, don't watch this review unless you don't care about spoilers. The Blacklist mainly stars James Spader as Raymond Reddington. He is this man who has been a criminal, a high-up, world-class criminal on the run for 20 plus years from just all world governments. He is one of the biggest criminals on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. So one day, just out of nowhere, Red decides to give himself up to the FBI. We don't really know why this happens. We find out a little bit later, like towards the end of the season, why he has decided to do this. He is obviously taken into custody. He is put into this secure box where he cannot escape from, and he says that he will only talk with Elizabeth Keene, who is played by Megan Boone. And she, as an actress, does a really good job. James Spader has been nominated for an Emmy for this role. He does a fantastic job in this series. So, just putting those two characters out there. Elizabeth Keene is starting her first day on the FBI on that exact day. So, it is no real coincidence that Red Reddington has decided to turn himself in on this exact day. So, she gets called in. She goes and talks to Red. She has no known history with the man, and just from there he starts to tell her about a plot which is going to unravel, and this whole thing happens in this first episode. The plot unravels. They end up finding the guy who's behind the terrorist attack of the week, and after this, the case is solved, and the FBI doesn't think that they need Red anymore, and then he reveals that he has this list called the Blacklist, and it has all these criminals who the FBI doesn't really even know about, most of them at least, and he essentially is willing to partner up with them in order to track down all these individuals. It is actually a really cool idea because with each episode we dive further into Elizabeth Keene's life, we dive a little bit further into Red's history, we dive further into Elizabeth's husband Tom, his past, and the mystery that is surrounding him from the very first episode. We dive into this task force and the people that compose it, and it's just very, very, very interesting type of show. Every episode essentially focuses on one single criminal. The episode title will be that criminal's name as the title, and it'll show their number on the blacklist, and it's just kind of a cool thing. And then some of these people are interwoven, and there's references made back to previous episodes in terms of these people and their connections, and it's just a very, very cool system that the show shows. I hadn't even heard of the show before I saw an ad for the pilot on YouTube before a video I was going to watch, and it said the Blacklist, and I had James Spader, so I'm like, this could be interesting. I'll watch the whole thing just to see if it's any good. I'll watch the whole thing. The trailer was essentially the first episode in a nutshell, but it set up this really interesting, intense idea, and I'm really happy I stuck with it because there are so many things which unravel in this season. In the mid-season finale, it's just a very intense thing. The compound gets infiltrated by a person who's trying to kill Red. One of Red's people gets killed in the action. Red ends up getting taken hostage and put into custody. He eventually escapes, obviously, because he's Red Reddington. We go from there, and that's the mid-season finale. Eventually we figure out where Red is again. Just kind of continuing along the cycle, and it all kind of builds up into, is Tom this secret operative, or what is behind Tom's secret life? Also, who is this figure called Berlin, who is consistently mentioned and thrown around throughout the majority of the season. So kind of going into spoiler territory towards like the last half of the season, we find out that Tom is a bad guy, essentially. He has been assigned to infiltrate the life of Elizabeth Keene, and by doing this, he dated her, he married her, and he is her husband, and she eventually figures this out. He gets discovered, and there's just a huge fight that happens between them in terms of like physical combat, and Tom is eventually on the run and trying to avoid capture, and he himself has connections to Berlin, and it's just really interesting. and it all essentially leads up into this big, massive finale that happens. And so, because of that, I'm going to be talking about the penultimate episode and the finale, mainly the finale. But yeah, so that's what I'll be talking about in this next part of the video. So if you have not seen the Blacklist Season 1 finale and you don't want spoilers, stop watching now. I thank you for watching. Like, favorite, comment, and subscribe, and I'll appreciate it very much. So the penultimate episode deals with Berlin, and exclusively Berlin. The main presence of this episode is to have Liz figure out that Berlin is not a place, it is a person that they're looking for. Red is very anxious about this and not really wanting to confront it, and he has lost Liz's alliance because she realized that he killed her father, and just all these tangled webs that are interwoven throughout the season. Liz wants something to do with the guy. Red's biggest rival is coming for him, and we don't really know why. So as the FBI decides, oh, we don't need Red anymore because he has done nothing to help us yet. So the FBI goes in, they capture Red Reddington, and then as they capture him, we see this plane that goes down, which we have been referencing back to for the majority of this episode. We have another blacklister which shows up, who has this virus that he's infecting people with. That guy gets captured. He gets infected with his own virus, which I think is really smart. Yeah, the plane decides to go down. It brings Berlin into the U.S., and we have our finale. So the plane goes down. We have a bunch of prisoners, including Berlin, who escape. So it's essentially up to the FBI, including Liz, Wrestler, and Cooper and Malik and all these main set of characters to find these people. And the very first shocking thing which happens in this episode is Malik's death. This happens within like the first 15 minutes of the episode. Her and Wrestler are in a nightclub trying to find these fugitives who have escaped, and one of them is on guard for these FBI agents and sneaks behind Malik and just slits her throat just like that, and she's done. And so that was the first real shocker. I had a feeling someone was going to die in this episode. Arguably, I watched it about 3 days after it premiered, but that being said, it was still fairly shocking as a death, because she was a really interesting and good character. I'm gonna miss having her on next season. Odds are they'll find someone to replace her, some character of some sort, but she was still a good character. Tom has essentially given Berlin this list of all these agents that are on Liz's team, and they're getting picked off one by one. First Malik gets killed, then Cooper gets attacked and almost killed. I thought they were going to actually kill him off in that episode and in that scene, but he ends up in a hospital bed, and then towards the very end of the episode we see him move his fingers, and it seems like he will survive and be an active member of the next season. Red escapes custody. He ends up getting a manifest for everyone, and just a slew of events happen. So I'm jumping to kind of the end of the episode at this point. Red finds out where Berlin's location is. He confronts him, or the person that he thinks is Berlin, and he is just so brutal with the way he interrogates people. He shoots the guy in the hand when he wouldn't talk. He shoots him in the hip, and he's doing just narration on the problems with getting shot in the hand and the good parts of getting shot in the hand and then shot in the hip, and then he was going to shoot the guy in the kneecap, and then the guy decides to talk and tell him why he has this huge vendetta against Red. And this is the point where Red realizes this is not Berlin. This is not the man I'm looking for. And then right at the moment, Tom walks in with Liz held at gunpoint, and the man who is believed to be Berlin commands Tom to shoot her. It looks like he might actually do it. And then as the guy's screaming, Red just caps him in the head. Ends that guy right off the bat. I figured that, okay, this could not be Berlin, because he's such a huge character and such a huge presence by this point that just a simple gunshot to the head will not suffice for that. So that was part of the giveaway for me. So we have this standoff between Red, Liz, and Tom. Liz is still held at gunpoint at this point. Tom ends up shooting Red, just like, doesn't actually shoot him, the bullet kind of goes across his arm. Liz is able to take advantage of Tom's not paying attention to her situation and gets the gun away from him, and then ends up shooting Tom in the chest about 3 or 4 times. So Tom is gone now in this episode. He is presumably dead. And then he whispers to Liz, which is revealed later in the episode, that her father is still alive. And this is something that really shakes up Liz, because Red has been telling her all this time that her father is dead and it's best that she not know who he is. So there's that whole distrust factor just kind of being added into her life. Does she believe Tom, who tries to help her out in his last moments of life, or does she believe Red, who has been the guy who's been more or less looking out for her for the duration of the season? My guess is that she'll dig into her father's personality and identity a little bit more in the second season, and we might get it revealed officially who it is. The very last clip of the episode makes it seem like it is actually going to be Red, who was the one who went into the fire and saved her, because he has all of these burn marks on his back and these scars from a burn. And so it makes it seem, or at least it alludes to the fact that he might actually be Liz's father, even though he denied it in like the 5th or 6th episode of the season, I think. One other quick thing, when they show the SWAT team entering into the compound where Berlin was, we see that guy's body, but we don't see Tom's body. So it's possible that Tom is still alive somehow. I don't know how he would survive 3 gunshots to the stomach, but this is a TV show and these types of things can happen. We also get to see the identity of the actual Berlin character, and I feel like I recognize him, but I don't know if I recognize him. I might just recognize the actor, I don't know. The guy has cut off his hand. He did that in order to escape the plane, so because he was handcuffed to the plane, he did that so he could escape. And so yeah, I'm sure that this guy will make a huge presence in the second season. We will probably see some sort of stand-up between him and Red in the mid-season finale of season 2 is my prediction. Obviously, I can't predict where the show is going to go at this point. Red and Liz seem to be parting ways almost, but I highly doubt that'll happen, or else we would not have a show. So, I'm really excited for September. I really wanted to get here quickly because I am just really looking forward to it. I think it'll be great. Leave your thoughts on season 1 of The Blacklist down here in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the season in general. Did you like it? Did you hate it? If you hated it, I don't know why you watched till the end, but to each their own. Make sure to go buy my short story called The Bridge down in the description down here. There will be a link there to the Amazon page where you can go and buy it. And as always, my good people, my name is Nick Pell, and as always, keep on watching.